Hey, what's good, family? This is your man Wood. Right now, we're going to take a quick look at HBO's Sharp Objects, eight episode. I think it's being called a limited series. I don't know. I think it's up in the air right now if it's going to be a season 2. But just wanted to give you a few thoughts on the first season. It stars Amy Adams, who's been in the Superman films, the latest by DCU, as well as the first Justice League, and then the Batman vs Superman joint. Obviously, Amy Adams is one of my favorite. I kind of get a hard time from my wife about being a stan of Amy Adams, but I like what I see out of her as far as her range, and she's kind of not like the traditional leading lady or the stereotypical. Obviously she has the red hair, piercing blue eyes, and all of that type of stuff. But like I said, I like the diversity in the roles that she's taken up thus far, and I like that she took this chance to take this book, and turn it into a pretty interesting show. I'm going to keep this a little short. I'm kind of working on some live streaming stuff right now. As you can see, you got a few graphics on the screen. Still trying to figure out how to incorporate the chat room in there. So that's why this is not truly live. I'm recording it ahead of time, but I think I might put this one out on the channel. It gets bogged down editing stuff, writing stuff. And by the time you do all of that, you've lost a lot of your energy and what you're trying to get out there. So I want to keep fresh content up on the channel, and I just want to talk about some entertainment and sports, as I would like to. Also, check out the bitedownboxing.com. The podcast is out there. The website is there. It's on social media with Twitter, Instagram, and there's actually a Facebook page. So I don't really want to split off a second channel. I'm just kind of gonna brand stuff with the different logos attached to the videos that they're for. So check that out. But let's get into this Sharp Objects. Like I said, 8 parts. I enjoyed the show. It's just a quick synopsis that they have on IMDb. Do I even want to get into that? But it's about Amy Adams plays a reporter. I believe she's located up in St. Louis to whatever the main paper is in St. Louis. But it says she confronts the psychological demons from her past when she returns to her hometown to cover a violent murder. She's from Wind Gap, Missouri, and her editor, who has a nice supporting character or supporting role in this show, he sends her back home because two girls have been killed in Wind Gap, and he's aware that she's from there, so he thinks it's a chance for her to go back and do some phenomenal work. And I guess where we pick up on the story, he has a very close relationship with her, and he's aware that she has these problems from her past. And I guess she's been in a funk for a long time. She's also like a functioning alcoholic. She kind of gives Jessica Jones a run from her money in terms of her alcoholic consumption on a daily basis. But so that's where we get into the first episode. She gets sent down to back home. And I think when she gets there, she checks into a hotel, and it looks like she's just going to be, covering or investigating this ongoing or developing story. But then, after spending the night, I believe, in the hotel room, we meet her family. And she obviously has a strained relationship with her mother. They've been estranged for years. She also has a sister that's played by Eliza Scanlon, who is an Australian, that's the first time that I've seen her, so this is a great introduction to her. Let me see who else is starring in this. Patricia Clarkson plays Adora Crellin, who is Amy Adams' character's mom. Amy Adams' name is Camille Preaker. Who else is in here? There's also a detective that's been sent in from Kansas City to aid in the investigation of what's going on. That's Chris Messina that's a detective, Richard Willis, who's played by Chris Messina. Chief Bill Vickery is another prominent character in the series. Chief Bill Vickery is played by Matt Craven. He's been in a couple of things. You know, if you watch the show, he's pretty familiar. Who else is in here? I don't think there's a lot of well-known actors and actresses except for Elizabeth Perkins, who plays Jackie O'Neill, who's kind of another prominent character in this small town of Wind Gap, Missouri. I want to say that's pretty much the major characters. So getting into it, the relationship between Camille and Adora, the mother, is very rocky because Adora, they own a pig farm and are pretty wealthy and have a lot of influence and power in the community. And there's also some romantic tension between Adora and the police chief. You get a glimpse of the chief's life, the home life and everything, but there's some tension there with him and Adora. Also, Adora's husband, I believe his name is Alan. Yes, Alan, played by Henry Kazerny. He's an interesting guy because they don't show much about him, although he's in the house. And another thing that plagues the story very early on is there's a lot of flashbacks going on. It's a lot of flashbacks to Camille's childhood and even up through high school, where we get to learn that by the end, and it's a lot of spoilers in here, folks, so if you haven't seen it, I wouldn't even watch any more of this. But she was, sexually assaulted by a group of men in the woods in high school. It's a lot of flashbacks to that. She also has some kind of disorder, that her being Camille has some kind of disorder with hurting herself, and she's marked up her skin and put all kind of words into her, cut it into her with sharp objects, which I guess is where the title comes from. And so she gets there, she's digging around, she's reunited with her family, she's seeing some of her older friends. She has a close relationship to Elizabeth Perkins' character, I think her Jackie, and she's just snooping around town trying to figure out who's doing the killing. I will admit, the show from episode 1 through, the 4th, 5th, somewhere maybe around the 4th episode, it is a little slow, but I think it works because the backdrop of the story is this Wind Gap, Missouri. So you're kind of meeting all of these small town folks and just kind of getting to know the lay of the land. So, I mean, as you're watching it, if you're trying to binge watch it, it may be a little frustrating at the pacing. But I will say, stick with it. There's a huge payoff at the end. And just moving along, Camille befriends she tries to go to the sheriff, who she knows, and tries to get information out of him, but he's really guarded because he doesn't want, he's aware that she's there from the big city, St. Louis, and he doesn't want his town to be made out to look a certain way just because there's the perception that there's this serial killer there. He's confident that we really don't know what it is. But anyway, the sheriff is also frustrated because the investigator has been sent there, again making him feel overlooked, or just like he can't perform his duties as the chief. So, without being able to get any information from the chief, of course she goes over to strikes up a relationship with the detective, Richard or Dick as they call him too. And he's very guarded too because he's aware of who she is, but obviously they're the two outsiders in Wind Gap. So they form a relationship which develops over time. It starts out a little rocky because he just doesn't want her interfering with what he's trying to do. He's trying to get back to Kansas City as soon as possible. So I think the show does a good job of giving you its two main characters that they take a look at, or they go to great lengths to make you believe, well, here's our two primary suspects. And they're a little weird. One is a brother of one of the girls that was killed, and then the other is the father of one of, I believe he was a father, but it's in a family that's had a divorce or a split up or something. So that's kind of what's going on with your suspects. But honestly, it kind of goes away from the investigation in a way, and it focuses a lot on the relationship between Camille and the detective, and then Camille and her family. And so the investigation moves to the forefront at different parts, but there's so much going on with the family that you really you as the viewer, you start taking a look at what the hell are the dynamics of this family as well. So anyway, in the second, third episode, you get the sense that somebody needs to beat Emma, the sister's ass. And then another major portion of this is we learned that there's a lot of Camille's problems stem from her losing a sister when she was younger. I think the sister might have been between 10 to maybe 13 or somewhere in there. But they lost a sister, and the family has a major hole in it with the absence of that daughter, and that's part of the flashbacks. So you get to understanding that something happened to the sister, but you don't know who did it or how it happened or whatever. So that's another thing that's kind of unfolding. So moving along to get into the ending, I think it's kind of funny that a reporter would be kind of solving a crime, without having any forensics or, access to many of the details that the detective is uncovering. So it's kind of weird in that way, but I guess with it coming from a book, it's believable. But anyway, they go ahead, and another part of the story is how the people in the town, some of the younger people want to get out of the town. So they're trying to do different things with Camille to find a way for their name to be in the newspaper, or for them to have some kind of notoriety by participating in the investigation that Camille is running. Anyway, the investigation of Camille and Dick, kind of as they become more allies, and a relationship, an intimate relationship sparks between those two, we start getting somewhere in the case. Then the relationship has its problems, as relationships always do, and Camille tries to force the issue to figure out who did it in her own way, and of course there's a major rift between her and the detective as Camille gets involved with one of the prime suspects. Then we get into finishing up. Like I said, the case kind of takes a weird turn, and everything starts focusing on either Camille's father-in-law or stepfather, stepfather, or the mother. And this part of it gets a little foolish because we realize that the mother is poisoning Emma, the younger sister, and now Camille is like, well, I got to take up for Emma because I didn't take up for Marion, who was the sister that's passed away. So she kind of puts herself in the position to receive this medicine, as Adora calls it. And but before she got into this, she told her editor back in St. Louis that I'm going to stop this. I know who did it. So, and then she hangs up the phone, and the editor is like, before she got off, he's like, you need to get back to St. Louis immediately. We'll get the cops informed of it, but this is taking its toll on you. We need to get you out. I'm pulling you. Come home. She goes and confronts her mom, steps in place, like I said, for the younger sister, starts willingly taking the poisoning. But as her sister improves a little bit, she's like, would you please go get the police? But she doesn't really tell her why she's doing what she's doing. And then Emma lets her down and does not go and get the police. So then the detective takes a couple of episodes, or an episode and a half, where he's following a new lead, which is looking into Camille's background. I don't know how he puts this together that's going to get him to the killer, because the girls were obviously dead before Camille even came to Wind Gap. But he starts digging at her past and realizes that something is wrong with what happened in the family. And so he's coming back in the final episode, he's coming back to check in on Camille after she stepped out on him. They had a falling out, obviously. And he intervenes as the mother is getting ready to put the finishing touches on Camille. There's some kind of disorder that they call out in the show, that why the mother is killing her own kids, or I forget what it is. It's kind of immaterial. But he comes back, and the editor had come down to Wind Gap and barged into the. You don't see this in the show, but he came down and got to the chief and convinced them that we need to get over here quick. I had communications with her, but once Adora started poisoning Emma and Camille, she took their cell phones away from them so that they could not communicate, as she was getting them into their final stages of killing them. So anyway, Adora goes out in handcuffs, and they automatically go. They find some. One part of the investigation was that the teeth of the girls were removed. And so that's kind of what has them believing that there's this serial killer out there, because both of the girls did not have their teeth. And they find a tool in the household that was used to remove the teeth. So it looks like, with walking out Adora in handcuffs and arresting her, that we have our case solved. The funny thing here is that they don't put the father or the husband in. They don't handcuff him and arrest him, which I didn't understand, because he kind of acts like he understands what's going on, and he's a weird character throughout the whole eight episodes. But he stays out of jail. Camille takes Emma back to St. Louis with her. She looks like she's changing up her life now that she's cleaned up all of these demons that had been plaguing her for all these years. She's actually raising Emma. Her and Emma had this really confrontational, adversarial relationship the whole show. And like I said, it was like Emma really needed her ass beat for some of the stuff that she was doing. I won't get into that. But anyway, to close it out, it's like 10 minutes left in the show, and you're like, what the hell is going on? Like, what's left to do? And like I said, it's a slow watch. What's going on here? And then the payoff for the entire 8 episodes happens in the final 10 minutes. Again, this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to know it, you should have been out of here already. But very quickly, Emma has a new friend in St. Louis. She's doing better. seems like she's, getting used to, and she was adamant that she wanted to get to St. Louis and be out of Wind Gap. It looks like she's improving. Their relationship is more loving, more sisterly. And then they have dinner at the editor's house with the editor's wife, Emma's friend May, and Camille. And Camille takes a look at the relationship between May and her sister Emma, and they have a little girl spat at the table that night, and she notices something about Emma that lets you know don't go anywhere. Quickly, in like 3 minutes, May's mother comes to Camille's apartment, I believe is what she stays in or lives in, knocks on the door, and she's like, have you seen May? And or have you seen May and Emma? And Camille is like, they're just out doing what they do, they're at the park, whatever. And they have some dialogue, share something, and May's mother goes away, she's just gonna wait for the girls to come home. Camille goes into her sister's room and realizes, she starts looking at this dollhouse that they've been showing the entire show. The house is a replica or a model house of this big estate that her parents stayed in or lived in Wind Gap. And Camille finds a tooth inside the bathroom of the model home. And there's this immaculate ivory floor that Adora kept talking about throughout the whole show. She looks in there, and that's what the tooth was, part of that floor. Then she looks at the rest of the floor and realizes that the floor is actually made up of teeth. So we're sitting here, this is like the high climax after the other climax. And then you're thinking that, well, yeah, it was a door. It really was a door. And, that's that. But then Emma comes into the bedroom, and Camille turns around with the tooth, and Emma says, don't tell mama. And then it just goes off. But something really slick that they do here is there's actually like a mid-credits scene where it comes back, and in like all of 8 to 15 seconds, they show that they show her actually with her two girlfriends that I didn't talk about, her roller skating buddies. They actually held down, they showed them holding the girls down out in the woods, beating them up, the ones that were murdered. And Emma is now the killer. And so then they also show another quick flash of Emma killing May at the park, like with the chain link fence. And so then you realize, mom was killing her daughters, and the sister, who had been doing some violent stuff and bullying, the very fragile Camille the entire show, and now it all makes sense of what was going on. And so that right there, not so much in a nutshell, is what Sharp Objects was. Like I said, it's really slow, but it was a good, I wouldn't say it's microwave popcorn movie, but if you actually would go out and make your popcorn on the stove top, and with the brown bag from the supermarket, pour the butter on and all that, it's a good, that type of popcorn series. Again, it is just 8 episodes. I don't know, I enjoyed it. It's kind of a slow watch, but it's Amy Adams carries the show very well. And like I said, Elizabeth Perkins kind of helps the story along. The chief, like I said, is a very familiar guy. Some of the teenagers in the movie do pretty well. It's a good look for HBO. Like I said, we'll keep an eye on whether or not there is going to be a part 2 or a season 2. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but again, like I said, it's just another show that I wanted to shed some light on. If you want to talk about it, please leave some comments, down in the comments section. If you like this review, which is very informal, as you see, I don't have any notes or anything, but like I said, one thing with the Payment No Mind show and talking about some of the entertainment that I'm going to be discussing is just an above 40 guy sitting around watching different stuff here and there, and I like to talk about it. So that's kind of the whole motivation behind the some of the breakdowns I'll do on here of movies and or television series. So now I'm gonna move on to the next. I forgot what I was gonna check out next. Maybe I'll tweet it out there or something. But again, check out Pay Me No Mind on Twitter at PMNM Haven. We can link up there. Like I said, make some comments down if you have any parts of the story that you want to talk about. There was an excellent article that I saw out there that kind of helped tie in, connect some of the dots a little bit further for you, because there's some different foreshadowing that I didn't catch. That reading this article, it was a pretty good, just like a lot of thought went into the show, and I didn't catch this, I didn't catch that. So I put that article link out there, probably in the description. I think the next video that I'm actually going to do, maybe later this week, will be taking a look at Star's show called Counterpart, starring J.K. Simmons. I do want to talk about that one. So again, hey, thanks for your time. Hit that subscription button for me. We're about to make a big push for 1,000 subscribers. I want to get back. Like I said, some of this live streaming stuff is actually intended to just be more active on the channel and providing a space where some of us can talk about some of our favorite television series and movies. So thank you. It's been real. It's your man Wood. Peace.